What is going on, 10 Hut? It is a 10 Hut show with a side
Here
of
we
whiskey.
are.
Here we are, and today, Jose was supposed to join us, but he's in Hawaii right now. I don't know, he said he's
That
teaching
slacker.
some pineapples at the Dome Plantation. So,
It's slacker.
yes,
Maybe he's out there in some haunted freaking pineapple bush.
probably, yeah. He's probably looking for SpongeBob's house or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I gotta say, man, exciting about today's show because first of all, when I first got out of the military, went to Citrus College to get my associate's degree, and Dr. Solheim, Bruce Solheim, was my professor for history. I took 2 classes. I gotta say, nothing but great stuff. Great professor, and he's also a military veteran, Army, right? Pilot.
Yeah,
And I'm gonna pass it on to you. Yeah, I'm gonna pass it on to you in a few.
Yeah.
But what really caught the attention, because if you guys know that this month has been paranormal stuff, because of the Halloween and everything. I'm a big fan of Halloween, and so he actually started a program at Citrus a couple years ago, 3 years ago. So Dr. B, I'm gonna Will, you gonna say something?
No,
okay.
No. I'm excited. I'm excited.
Yeah,
I want to hear
Dr.
it.
Solheim,
Let's go.
it's all yours.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me on the show. And yeah, I am the paranormal professor now. I guess that I let the cat out of the bag, the spooky October Halloween cat out of the bag a couple of years ago. And but really, I've had a paranormal life since I was a little kid. And starting with an angelic healing experience when I was 5 in northern Norway, on a remote island in northern Norway.
Wow.
Where I was healed, miraculously. And from that day forward, it just kind of opened up the doors into the other side, if you will, the other worlds. And I've had experiences ever since. And my mom was very psychic. So we would, for instance, when I was growing up, we would practice telepathy with cards, just regular playing cards, and we'd get a really good hit rate going. We'd get it right pretty often in a row, and then my dad would get mad and tell us to put it away because he didn't like. My dad wasn't afraid of very much, but he was afraid of the paranormal. That's not something he was into. I mean, he was a deadliest catch kind of fisherman in Alaska and a carpenter and in World War II, he was in a Nazi labor camp. He was put in a camp. So I mean, he's a brave guy, but it freaked him out. The paranormal freaked him out. But my mom, it was very natural for her, and she had the ability. And she wasn't like a practicing psychic, but I grew up with that, and it was very normal. I'll just put it that way. The paranormal was very normal to me because it just kept happening.
Wow.
So would you say it would? I mean, just to put in perspective for people that are watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
What movie, like Conjuring or something like that, like with Elizabeth Warren, right? Is that her name? Yeah, something Warren. Is it like that you felt or feel?
There's a number of different paranormal type things that have happened in my life. Everything from, like I said, this angelic healing experience, to which is a very good thing, obviously.
Yeah.
I've also had some very scary, what I would classify as demonic entities that have attacked me. I've had that happen, and recently, actually, January of 2019, I had one of those. And I've also, like I said, I practiced telepathy with my mom. I've had psychokinesis, whereas the mind moves matter, that kind of thing. Experiences with that. And of course, the classic ghosts, apparitions, hauntings, even, speaking of Citrus College is very haunted. I mean, it is a haunted location.
Really?
And when I do the class, we do field experiments. We just go right outside of the classroom door. Mm-hmm. You remember where the old child care center was?
Yes.
Yeah. Where they set up the Veterans Center, and then next to it was the old child care center. Yeah. There's a playground there. It's abandoned for the last 15 years. It's haunted. It's a haunted playground. So
what?
We did an investigation there, and then I also interviewed all the the night janitors, the custodians at night.
Mhm.
And when everybody's gone, and they had all kinds of experiences. So I included that in one of my books, all the experiences that the night custodians have had on
Wow.
campus. So it's almost any place that's been around for a while is going to have some kind of haunting if you're sensitive to it.
Right.
And if you don't like that kind of stuff, the best thing to do is just don't believe it, don't acknowledge it, and then just
Just forget
keep your eyes forward, keep moving.
So maybe because you're the professional at this, you're the professor of this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I had an experience a while back, maybe about I want to say about almost 15 years ago.
Wow.
And this is what happened. Like I've the scientific explanation to feeling like you're trapped in bed is
can't
called
move, like you're paralyzed.
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis. Yeah.
Okay, so I've felt that before, and I've also felt the when as a kid I used to feel like somebody would push me off my bed, and I would be falling forever, and then I would wake up and I'm on the floor, right? Which didn't scare me that much, but there was, because I just thought, it's sleep paralysis, or you're just, what you're going through is making you think that in your mind. But there was one situation. My ex-wife's grandmother passed away at around 5:15 in the morning, right? Around 5 o'clock that morning, I felt like something dark, a shadow came over me and was holding me down. And then I finally woke up and the phone rings and they tell her, hey, your grandma just passed away. They've been working on her at the hospital. But I woke up like trying to catch my breath, trying to, speak. And it was just like, just very, I know I could say it's coincidence or something, but I don't know. How would you explain that?
Yeah, well, there's different kinds of entities, and most of them are pretty harmless. I'm going to say, most of them are just people that are on the other side that want desperately to talk or have some communication with us, and if you're a sensitive person and you're in the right brainwave state, where you're relaxed, kind of like a meditative state, which is sometimes when you're in bed, you kind of get in between that sleep and awake, kind of meditative state, best way to describe it. And that's when, these entities, if you're halfway sensitive, are going to approach you. Now, most of the time they're harmless, but they can be extremely annoying, and they can frighten people, but they don't necessarily want to harm you. And but then again, there's other entities that are the darker, more malevolent kinds. Some of them might have been human at one point. Others have never been human. They'd be classified as like demonic stuff. They're really scary, things. So I would say it's hard to say if the entity didn't communicate with you, but it gave you a feeling of dread or something like that, then it could have just been somebody who had passed on, or an entity that was maybe angry, for one reason or another. But
she was mad at you, bro.
Man, what I do to grandma?
Maybe didn't mean to do you any harm, or I don't know. Yeah. But it's hard.
I just felt the weight, weight, like it just felt like they're like trying to push on you, almost like if somebody grabs you and tries to shake you so hard that they knock the wind out of you. If anything.
Well, they definitely wanted your attention for whatever reason, and it was. See, the thing is, a lot of people, it was just my imagination, or maybe it was a bad dream, or whatever, or maybe I ate a bad taco or something.
Tacos.
I don't know, or a burrito,
heavy taco,
some bad shellfish or whatever. But no, this stuff is real, and on the gauge of how scary it was, I'm sure, nobody wants to feel like somebody's on top of them when there's apparently nobody there.
Yeah.
But these energies, these entities, the ones that want our attention, they desperately want to connect with us. And sometimes they'll do it by touch, sometimes they'll do it by talking, or like more like a telepathy kind of thing. And sometimes you'll see apparitions. I mean, you said you saw a dark, shadowy kind of thing.
So I sleep with my covers over my face, and when you I like to sleep with a really thin blanket. So usually, especially around 5 a.m. in Tucson, Arizona, you kind of feel like the light comes through, and it's kind of like a little bit lighter. You can still see through, and it just got dark. And then I felt like the pressure. So like if somebody was hovering over me, not necessarily that it was a dark figure, but it was just like a shadow over me. Yeah.
There was something there. Yeah. And you felt it too. So, that makes it's real then, that is real. And these things they can be very frightening. The experience I had, the one I was telling you about, the scariest one I've had probably. I've had a number of scary ones, but this one was in January 2019. And I had just been on, that show at night, Coast to Coast AM, with George Norrie. It's a lot of paranormal and stuff kind of show. It comes on at midnight. Anyway, I'd just been on there, and I got a number of phone calls, emails, people, and then there's one guy who's like a film producer, and he was doing a documentary. And he wanted to fly me out to Chicago to test my psychic abilities, because apparently he was impressed or whatever. And so I said, that's fine, as long as I can bring my wife with me, because I don't know who this guy is. So, I figured I'd bring her with. And so he just started testing me, took me to different places. I'm not familiar with Chicago, but, around the city, in the city, outside of the outskirts of the city. Towns around there, and it was pretty interesting, and I did okay. I wasn't really that impressive because I didn't know the guy. I felt kind of uncomfortable, and this kind of psychic stuff, it kind of comes and goes. It's not like you're 100% all the time, and so I was a little nervous. And then so I was really trying to impress him, and I felt like I was kind of losing him, like he was losing interest in me. So I really wanted to impress him, and that's a mistake. Because he took me to the south side of Chicago, to this old neighborhood, and it was a bad neighborhood in the south side of Chicago. If you've ever been to the south side, and old neighborhood, falling apart and everything. And I got out of the car, and I didn't even do any protection. Usually I do some kind of protection, like prayers or whatever. Everybody's different how they do it. But as soon as I got out of the car, to heck with that, I'm just gonna connect. So I got out, and immediately it was an old film, those old black and white, those early films, they kind of jerky like that. It was playing in front of me in my mind's eye, and it was like from the 1890s, the way people were dressed in dark clothing, and they were coming and going really fast, and like in with horse and buggies and stuff like that. And they were all ignoring me. It's like I was watching a film. And then there was one guy staring at me, kind of close to me in this film, and he's wearing a bowler hat. He had one of those curly waxed mustaches, dark eyes, a dark overcoat. He's just scary looking. He was just staring at me, right? So I got kind of creeped out, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and I lost the connection. So I said, I got to pick up the connection again. So I was walking around in the alleyway in this very bad neighborhood, right? So I'm walking in this alleyway, and I go up to touch a tree, because I feel like if you can touch something, you sometimes connect to what had happened in that location. So I was just about to touch this tree, and all of a sudden it was like I was tackled. There was nobody there, nobody visible, right? I felt like I was tackled and driven to the ground, and I couldn't get up. I felt like I was being pressed into the ground. And the worst part of it was that I started to lose my willpower. It felt like I was losing all my energy. And what I saw underneath the ground in my mind's eye was all these people that were being tortured, and that were like reaching up, like a scary movie where they're like reaching for you and trying to pull you down. But they were all like like victims of torture or whatever, men, women, and children.
Yeah.
And I said, the guy had me mic'd up. I wasn't on camera, but I was mic'd up, and he came running out because I was narrating what was happening, and I was injured, and he comes out and he goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I got to get out of here. This is terrible." And he said, "You know what? I feel something bad too. Like my whole body's vibrating." I said, "Okay, let's get out."
Jeez.
We get in the car, and I say, "What is this place?" Because he didn't tell me what it was. All he said was that it was kind of a dark place. That's all he said. So we get in the car, we're driving away, and I said, "What is this place?" And he said, "Have you ever heard of the Murder Hotel?" And I said, "No, I hadn't heard of the Murder Hotel." Well, apparently there was this guy named Dr. H.H. Holmes. He had built this hotel in Chicago.
Yeah.
And he tortured and killed maybe up to 300 people in this building. There was like torture chambers and like gas chambers.
He had a pharmacy at the bottom.
Yeah.
Second floor nobody knew about. Third floor was the second floor to everybody. Trap doors that would make people go into the second floor, like random people, not just anybody. Yeah. And then he would torture the crap out of them. Yeah. So they figure maybe up to 300. So he was like one of America's first mass murderers. Serial killers. And serial murderer. And he was a doctor too, which is really makes it even creepier. But so I said, don't ever take me to a place like that. But, it was really my fault because I didn't do my usual protection. Because if I go into a place and I know that it's bad, I'm going to protect the heck out of myself. I'm not going to be like wide open, like, whatever happens. Mm-hmm. And that was on me. That was my fault. I went home and I got on the computer and I looked into the hotel and got on the computer and looked up H.H. Holmes. And the first thing that came up was that picture that looked just like the dude that I saw when I got out of the car.
Wow.
So that guy is still there, or the demonic entity that drove him to do what he did is still there, or some combination.
Jeez.
And it just shows you how this stuff it can be dangerous. It's not everything that's dangerous, but there are certain things. So my recommendation to everybody, if you're really interested in ghost hunting and that, it's fun, to do that. Protect yourself, have other people with you, be careful. And if somebody tells you, "Oh, we know there's a demon in there," you don't need to go in there. Just take their word for it. Okay, that's fine.
Don't be that one.
You don't want to deal with that stuff. It's much more powerful than you think. And
do you think that, because there's a big argument always with the spiritual side and the scientific side, right?
Yeah.
The spiritual side is saying that there's demons out there, and then there's also the scientific side that says no, it's usually a person that's having psychotic episodes or having some kind of issue going on. Mm-hmm. But I mean, when you think like H.H. Holmes, right, or Albert Fisher, or all these serial murderers, serial killers that were out there, do you think that those are demons incarnated in the human bodies?
It could be, or they're just driven to do what maybe they made some kind of deal, a bad deal,
Wow.
and got whatever they wanted, but then in exchange they got, possessed or whatever. And, but it is true. I have kind of a funny story that relates to the military, but, when I'm part of the VA, I get my health care at the VA, and I took the advice of other veterans who told me, "Oh, I see a message from Don. Hello."
Yeah.
That I always told vets, "Hey, go get the resources, go get the what you're entitled to, whatever, and go through it." But and finally a vet told me, I can't remember his name now, but Dr. B, why don't you go? Why do you tell us to go? Why don't you go? So I did. Anyway, so I was part of the VA system. They're doing the intake, right, for psychological counseling and all that. And I have a form, and the form says, "Do you hear voices? Do you see people that aren't there? Do you hear people who aren't there?" And I laughed because, I'm psychic. So I said, "I know I'm not crazy, But so I told the nurse, I said, the intake, I said, yes, I do hear voices of people who aren't physically there. Yes, I do see people that aren't physically there. But I'm not going to check that box on your form. But I'm telling you," and she was like, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "But I'm not going to check that on your form."
So
That's
okay,
That is the definition of
I
some kind of psychosis.
gotta ask. I mean, I have to ask that. So when did you say, you know what, this is not my mind playing tricks on me? This is actually something else. When did you finally come to a consensus that you agreed with, hey, this is not just, you know,
yeah, it's
I'm not just crazy. I'm not just losing my mind right now.
Yeah.
No, it's important, and it's well, I'll tell you this. I mean, I've had this stuff happen to me since I was little, so it's been going on my whole life. And sometimes you can ignore it, but then it comes back again, and then you try to put it, because you can't really. I mean, now I don't mind talking about it, but like when I was in the military, I wouldn't talk. Maybe to my best friend or my buddy or whatever, or but very few people I mentioned any of this. Because of that stigma, that some people are going to think you're nuts or, some kind of crazy person. So, and then of course, when I worked at Boeing, I was in defense contracting. I had a top secret clearance. I wasn't going to talk about it.
No.
I see dead people. And
they'll be like, all right, you're done, dude.
Let's see, clearance off.
See you later.
Yeah. And then as a professor, I figured I'm going to lose my job if I, start talking about this stuff. So it took a lot. It was 2016 when a friend of mine passed away. And as usual, what happens is after people pass away, they usually come to me and I talk to them. And it was my friend Gene, a guy I grew up with in Seattle. And he told me, now's the time to tell your stories. And I've been too afraid to do it. I didn't have the courage to do it. I thought I'd lose my job. People would think I was nuts. So I said, okay. And he said, I'll even give you the title of the book you should write. You should call it Timeless, because where I am, he's in the spirit world. There is no past. There's no future. It's just all the eternal present. It's just, it's all in one, which is kind of what Einstein said, that everything's happening at once. Yeah. And so I had the courage to do it. So I ended up writing 4 books about these. Each book got a little bit weirder, because I wanted to test the waters with the first one, and then it got more and more bizarre, and then ended up talking about aliens at the end, because I figure a lot of people they'll buy that you thought you saw a ghost or you had a ghost experience. Okay, I can handle that. But then you start talking about, other things. You start talking about aliens or whatever, extraterrestrials, and people go, nah, I don't think so. I'm not going to go that far. Yeah. So I have to kind of progressively ease
people into it.
Ease them into it. Yeah.
So I have a question, because going back to the whole sleep paralysis. So have you ever, from your experience, have it or met people that say, I have sleep paralysis? Because I get a lot of different, answers. It's like it's something that has to do with your brain. It shuts down completely, or I heard like there's a witch running your back, thing. And so I used to have a lot of sleep paralysis since I was like maybe 9, and it was ongoing until maybe when I got out of the military.
Wow.
So I used to hate going to sleep. Like seriously, I feared it. And it's not the dreams that I had. It was just like that feeling like somebody was just like, I was drowning. I was like underwater, and I was trying to get move and everything. So,
I mean, it is a very real condition. And to tell you the truth, I've only had that kind of experience one time. And it was mimicking sleep paralysis, but it was not sleep paralysis, even though I felt like I was being electrocuted and I couldn't move. It's like it just grabbed onto 2 electrodes and I was wide awake, but I couldn't move. But just before that happened, I saw some shadowy figures in the room. I was in the bedroom by myself. Ginger, she's a night owl, so she was working in the what we call the fun room, which is kind of our rec room, and she was in there working, so she wasn't there. And I felt like there was somebody in the room, and then all of a sudden I was going to get up, but I couldn't. And so it was similar to sleep paralysis. And what's interesting, a lot of people who've had abduction experiences, extraterrestrial kind of stuff, describe something that's very close to sleep paralysis.
Wow.
But they obviously have other things going on,
right.
Not just the sleep paralysis itself. So, but it is a very scary thing. And the only thing if I physically was trying to fight it. I remember I couldn't fight it. It was too hard to physically fight. So what I did is I just had to talk myself out of it.
That's
Kind of
what
the
I
way
did.
you do with a lot of vets, a lot of folks that have been in traumatic experiences get anxiety, get panic attacks, right?
Right.
That's the same technique I use. That calming technique of, I can't fight, kind of like a little boat on the ocean. You're going to go up with the big wave, but you're going to come down again. So I just had to kind of talk my way out of it, and then it stopped, and whatever was in the room with me vanished.
I want to say that for me, I'm thankful that it's been a few years now that I've had it, because I used to hate it. And my wife experienced it once, because at one point I was having it every day, and I guess she felt the same energy, and it happened to her like maybe twice, or once or twice, 2 times. But after that, it just didn't happen. But it's scary. It's a scary thing.
So, and you touched a little bit on this, on the PTSD, right? So, I've always thought that PTSD or more, not PTSD as a whole, because there's a lot of symptoms that go along with it, right? But the re-imaging, going back to a situation is
the re-experiencing.
It's something trying to bring you back to that timeline. For some reason you miss something, and it seems like you keep trying to go back to that timeline, and you're stuck in that, right? And I know when it comes to psychiatric therapy, they never want to talk about anything of that sort, because that's of course not, that's just your mind playing tricks on you, right? But I think it's more than that. I don't know what you have researched.
No, I suspect you're right. And if you get the right therapist, they will talk about the paranormal. In fact, I got them to where they wanted to talk about it all the time, and I'd give them copies of my books and stuff. So, and that includes a psychiatrist too that I talked to. I had this a civilian psychiatrist, and I talked to him, and I gave him a copy of my book with my experience, and he was fascinated by it. He just thought it was really, so it depends on who you have, but the most of them are going to say, no, that's just something pathological, and that's something you have to deal with. It's not real. And but
it's in your mind.
There's so many people, they did a survey, a guy named Dean Radin, Dr. Dean Radin. He's the chief scientist at IONS, which is the Institute of Noetic Sciences in Petaluma, California. And that's the institute that was started by the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who's passed away now. But he had an experience in space, a paranormal experience. And when he came down,
the spirit that took over him, he said.
And he started this institute. So Dean Radin's the chief scientist there, and they did a survey of scientists, engineers, and technicians. So these professional mathematical science genius people, right? And I think it was 85% of them said that they had, in this survey, said they have had a paranormal experience in their life. That a profound one, not just, something they think was, but they knew it was. But almost all of them said they're not going to talk about it publicly, because they don't want to lose their jobs, their funding. So the thing is, if people were more, like myself, I had to overcome that fear myself, but once I did, you wouldn't believe the people that I have other faculty come up to me and tell me, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. And they tell me stuff, and they'd like look around first, make sure nobody's listening, and then tell me their story.
A lot of it has, I was going to say, a lot of it has to do with cultural, like upbringing. Because at least in the Hispanic community, they immediately talk about anything that's paranormal, especially La Llorona. So, I've heard this from my family, and they talk about it with everyone. Like, La Llorona is true and everything. So and
it's something that I bring up to a lot of people, because sometimes they think I'm losing my mind. But I always tell people this: look, if you sit there and just think with what everybody else thinks, then you're never going to go outside of that. You're going to be sheltered into this box, and you're just going to be doing the repetitive things that everybody else does. When you think of Einstein, when you think of Jack Pearson, the guy that invented rockets, This guy was casting out demons and believed in like a totally different experience, right? I was just watching this show called Lore about stories of just paranormal stories and how people's life has changed by thinking way outside the box. Einstein, everybody thought he was a lunatic, because how would you even think of any type of mathematics and that type of equations, right? And I try to tell veterans the same thing. It's, you need to stop looking at what everybody is processing. You need to look at what works for you and what you believe and what you can figure out for your life, you know? When it comes to PTSD, one of the big things is that I could be standing right next to the same with a partner that's been through the military and been through exactly every experience that I did, and it might never phase them, but it phased me. Something phased me in whatever happened for a reason, right? And it changes our course in the way that we live. And I think that's why you need to live your life the way and believe the way you believe.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I think that, you know, speaking of culture, like you were talking about, Pedro, the Norwegian culture, my parents are from northern Norway. You know, that's trolls and stuff like that.
I was just gonna ask you that, because there was a movie out there. I was like, wait, is there really trolls out there? You know,
I grew up with that. So, you know, you're already halfway to the paranormal already. It's natural, you know, and they were farm people and fishermen. And of course that's filled with, you know, there's superstitions too, but there's, you know, a lot of old, you know, traditions and stuff. And I think that people need to be closer to their natural self, whoever they are. And ancient people, they knew their relationship to the earth and to the stars, and you know, whether it's Native Americans or indigenous people in Mexico or indigenous people in Northern Europe, you know, the Laplander, the reindeer people, they had this special relationship. And modern science and the way we've approached things now, and you know, in living in these urban centers, we've kind of removed ourselves from all of that knowledge that our ancestors had. Right. And why my theory is, why don't we take what they had, remember it, and get close to it, and use the science and technology, and then maybe take the next evolutionary leap. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
And they're finally, you know, and this has been around for years, right? Spiritual science has been around for years, and they're finally starting to accept it and actually use it, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting.
My theory has been, especially somebody was talking about extraterrestrial beings, it's like, how can you believe that we're the only intelligent creatures in a universe where there's a freaking sun that's a billion times bigger than ours somewhere else? Well, how do you think that we're the only ones? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But
you know, I was gonna say, like, the archives in the CIA library, they actually put out that there is dimensions and stuff like that, and someone found it, and they actually said about that, you know. So it's like, it's out there, and you know, in today's modern world, everyone is so focused on their busy lives that you tend to, you know, most people tend to forget about themselves and
a little box.
And it just just take some time for yourself, and you know, and breathe, right, like, so to speak. And that's what happens, and that's why many people say, he's just, you know, there's something wrong with him or her, you know. But it's that, you know, it's just having that time. Meditation helps a lot. Just kind of center yourself, and you start really seeing other things, not really seeing things, but like seeing more of yourself and being more aware of things, you know. So
you remember Manny, right? The guy who started with me and my wife Ginger. We started Boots to Books,
right?
Manuel Martinez from the East LA Vet Center, right?
I do, yes.
I don't know if he ever told you this story, but it's a remarkable story. But when he was in Vietnam, he was in the 193rd Airborne, you know, and he was in the thick of things early in Vietnam. And like, I'm talking about like 66, you know, he was there really early. And they were chasing some Viet Cong through a village, and these guys went into a monastery, or through a monastery, right, with Buddhist monks, right? So they're charging in there with their M16s, or maybe their M14s, and who knows, you know, early. And they charge in there, and they're like pointing at these monks. There's no VC to be found, but there's all these monks, and they were all, yelling and screaming at these monks, and pointing their weapons at them, threatening them. And the monks just continued to meditate. Didn't even faze them at all. Wow. I mean, they were so into their meditation and their union with the cosmos or whatever. They didn't even recognize the fact. And Manny said that was such a profound experience for him, that how can you reach that kind of concentration and lack of fear and all that focus, and here I am, he was saying, I'm just living in fear for my life, which, a person does in combat. I've never been in combat, but I know a lot of people who have been. And, how do you get to this natural state like that and have absolute connection with everything? He just said it was so moving to him. That's when he started, looking into, meditation after he had that experience. So
I had no idea. Yeah.
Cool.
It takes, it really takes sometimes, majority of people have to like look at things, right? Like see things to say, okay, there's something else in this world that I don't know of. And I'm going to test this out, Yeah. And I'm sure, like, you guys were mentioning, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that love to share their paranormal experience, but are fear of what people might think of them, This is, I'm right now, everyone talks about anything right now, especially in all these social media channels, so
I mean, and that's what I tell people is you got to be open-minded for other things than just the normal stuff that everybody else talks about, because I mean, there's got to be way more, I think. And that's the big thing is sometimes we're just too close-minded. We're just too into the normal, everyday, what everybody's doing, the rat race that they call it.
Right. Yeah.
So, kids are very perceptive and psychic, but then schools and, all the educational stuff, they kind of drill it out of them. It's like, I remember going to school in kindergarten. I had two playmates, invisible to other people, visible to me, playmates. And I started talking about them when I went to kindergarten. I quickly was told, that's not real.
Wow.
You just forget it. You're not allowed to talk about it. I went home, told my mom, and my mom being psychic, she says, they're real. They're real to you. You can keep them. Just you just be careful who you tell people.
Yeah.
And so I could still, because my mom was so accepting, I carried it with me to,
it really, it really reminds me of the last movie with, what's that movie called? The Conjuring, with the Devil Made Me Do It.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that it was that one where they was trying to figure it out if it was really possessed or not. It was more like a mental health situation. So, and to these days, that's what happened. It still happens, right? Some people think that it's, it's a mental health issue, but then again, it's, who knows, right? And then it's finding that distinction. As an individual, you can probably find it, but finding in the masses, like when somebody's talking to you, like how can you find that distinction between mental health or paranormal?
There's a whole team of professionals, actually thousands in the world, that have a psychologist and somebody that deals with that stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, Dr. B, like you kind of got to stay away from that stuff because it's way above.
I'll go the other way. Somebody says there's a demon in there, you should go check it out. You're like, I'm going the other way.
Call somebody else that's a pro at that. You wouldn't have the plumber install your electrical wiring, right? So,
there's exorcist. I have a guy I know in Las Vegas. He's an exorcist. He's not in the Catholic Church, but he's like part of it, kind of, and unofficially, but that's what he does. And apparently he's very busy in Las Vegas, as you might imagine. There's a lot of that stuff going on.
There's
Jesus.
And I talked about this last week with Jose. One of my uncles, he's a priest, and his one of his friends is a priest, and he's an exorcist priest. And he talks about that because they have like a whole team, and some of them are not priests because it takes the way he explained it to me is it takes a very special type of person, kind of like you, that sees certain things, right? And then it takes a psychologists that or psychiatrists that can evaluate that person and say, okay, this is more than that. And then it takes a priest to go with that other person that focuses on that type of stuff to work on a person. So it's not like just like what you see in the movies, you know, where the priest goes and starts shaking holy water on somebody. They actually have like special teams of people that work that stuff. It's not.
Yeah, you don't want to go it alone. That's for sure. But you know this idea of the distinction. You know, if person is possessed, naturally that will cause a psychiatric condition. So that you could have both. You could have, so you're going to have to, like you said, a holistic approach. You're going to have to reintegrate that person and, you know, and provide them with care and maybe even medication. And then, you know, the holistic approach, I think, is the...
Right, it has to be. It just can't be just one singular thing. Just kind of have to look at everything.
You use everything you got.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever you can get.
So I have a question. Now that we've been talking to paranormal stuff, let's talk about aliens. Like, what's some of your experience? I gotta, you know,
you're going in deep, bro. You're going in deep.
I want to go. No, I do too, because you know, I was just talking to this. I was talking to someone yesterday about this.
Pedro, I'm going to ask you for something. What's that? I'm going to ask you to bring Dr. B back onto the show, because I think this conversation is going to take a whole nother hour, a whole nother 45 minutes. And I really want to get deep into that, you know.
Well, I have a lot of no, you're right. You're right, Will. But I will say this, that it's connected, Pedro. It's connected, because my theory is that the spirit world, the alien world, and the quantum world are all the same thing.
Yeah.
Huh.
And as evidence for that, I'll say, you know, people that have had ghost experiences, the ghosts vibrate into our reality.
Mm-hmm.
They go through walls, they go through windows, whatever, and then they disappear, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talk to people who've had alien experiences. Mm-hmm. They come in, they vibrate into our reality. They go through walls, windows. They can even get you to vibrate and go with them wherever. They're operating in the same realm, which is the quantum realm, which is a subatomic realm, which is very different than our subjective reality. Yeah. And it's kind of like
See, I don't want to get into these questions.
Yeah, I mean that's the underlying theory, but the bottom line is that they're connected. They're connected. Yeah, and that is kind of once again a holistic approach. You know, you got to look at the whole thing.
You know, I was just talking to someone about this yesterday, and I said, you know, there's no way we are ourselves, just this Earth, and that's it. This huge entire universe, and there's like different galaxies, right? There's no way. I mean, I won't be surprised as humans out in other galaxies, right? But who knows? I mean, far more advanced than we are.
You know, and you know what's wild, and people, and a lot of the religions suppress it. You know, I don't like to talk. We're not talking religion here, but I'm just saying in general, they suppress it, and there's statements that talk about it. Yeah. You know, the extraterrestrial. Yeah. You know, and if you think about it, if in any religion, God lives in some type of heaven or another dimension or other area or whatever you want to believe, that means that they don't live in Earth. So there's your answer. I mean, just God and its beings and angels and demons and everything you talk about is not from this Earth, you know, so.
Yeah, I'm not a biblical scholar, but you know, in the Old Testament, the Ezekiel and the wheel, the wheel and the chariot or whatever, a lot of scholars think that is a reference to extraterrestrials. And then if you talk to indigenous people, they talk freely about the star people. You know,
the star people.
So whether it's the Aborigines or the Navajo or what, you know, the people all around, these indigenous people who are still close to their nature religions, you know. So it is kind of interesting. But the other thing I wanted to say is to think about, I have a friend of mine who teaches at Montana Tech. He's I think he's engineering he's an engineering professor, but he wrote a book called Identified Flying Objects. Mm-hmm. And his theory is that the UFOs and the aliens, they are us from the future coming back and trying to help us.
That's true. What a
Yeah,
trip
it's
right
really trippy. You know, it's
Wow.
really kind of a cool theory, and
Yeah.
I don't discount it. But I do think we're related to them. Like you said, there could be humans or
Yeah.
humanoid types.
Yeah.
I think we are in that. There is that special relationship, and anyway, I'm not the only one that thinks that. You know,
Let's
Yeah, we have to. We
Pedro,
have to.
Pedro, let's chalk this one up right here. Let's cut it because we're running out of time, and I really want to get into this topic
Yeah.
and talk about some other stuff. And I want to talk about how this stuff applies to war, right? Because
oh yeah,
there's certain things that I think.
Yeah.
Let's talk about next
I know
time.
where you're going because I think I researched the same thing, and I'm talking about.
Let's talk about it next time when we have
fascinating.
more
It is
time.
fascinating stuff. Yeah.
So before we end the show, so I wanted to ask, send me like any links. Maybe I have it, I just don't recall, but send me any links that has with your books, and I'll definitely buy one. And then I'll share it into the Facebook, Facebook group and LinkedIn.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yeah, because definitely, I am very interested to know more. This is awesome.
Yeah, my personal website has links to all my books, and
Okay.
I even publish comic books too. So
Nice.
all about alien stuff too. So that's pretty cool.
I see a few in the back right there. In the back of
Yeah, I think I got I got a lot of my toys and stuff back there.
Nice.
And comic books back there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So Pedro has one last question before we head out.
Oh yes.
Okay.
And wait, Dr. B, if after the show, stay on because we're gonna talk.
We like to do
I want you to
AARs. Yeah, we do AARs after.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. All
But
right, so-
he has one last question for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite MRE, or is it C rations?
Man, well, okay. I'm old enough to where I've had both C rations and MRE.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like the beans and weenies just because you can't go wrong with beans
What
and weenies.
is that?
Never heard of that.
The beans and weenies, yeah.
Was that C-RAS?
Oh man.
Rats, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's why. I've never had.
You can't mess it up. It's kind of like a BLT at a restaurant. You don't know what to get. Get a BLT. How can you can't really mess up a BLT?
You're gonna get the same thing every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, so I figured the beans and weenies were, they were always passable.
Yeah. But did you guys have hot
alright.
sauce too, like to make it even better, or?
Oh yeah, everybody had hot sauce. Yeah, you had to have it.
I think Pedro needs to send you one of the newer, more
Yeah,
fancy,
we'll have to,
cultural,
Ooh.
Like the
MREs.
update, the update ones.
Like
The Mac, the chili Mac, or one of those.
I love number 9, which is a beef stew.
Like,
So I have a
the
lot of
chicken,
history.
the chicken pesto pasta.
Yeah,
oh man, that's some gourmet stuff.
it is. Yeah, and after that, you'll be having some trouble going to the bathrooms. But
I remember in the Sea Rats, you'd get what we called a John Wayne bar. It's like this cookie that's as
I've
hard
heard
as a
of that.
brick.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. Yeah,
The John Wayne bar. They called it.
Yeah.
It was really round like a cookie.
yeah. All right, awesome, Dr. B. Thank you so much for being on the show. We're definitely gonna have
Thank
to
you,
bring you
guys.
back. For those that have been watching, please share this video, like this video, and subscribe to our channel at 10hutshow.org.
Subscribe.
I'm telling you right now, this is, I'm sure most of you guys have been watching. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, send them over because probably we can do a Q&A in the future with Dr. Solheim. So I'm
Sure.
super, super excited
I'm
for
on
this.
board.
All right, guys. Until next time, take care and be safe and have a great weekend. Don't eat too much candy because Halloween is coming.
Oh yeah.
soon.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween,
Yeah,
everyone.
Happy Halloween.
All right, take care. Salud.